Young-woo was a brilliant man who wanted nothing to do with his father. The reason was the same one that made him cancel his marriage. He called it off when a woman showed up a week before the wedding claiming she was pregnant with his child. He refused to repeat what his parents had lived through. But the situation wasn't the same. The woman had lied for money. Tests later proved it. Still, Young-woo never went back to the marriage, and no one ever knew the full truth. In the meantime, Young-woo began to suffer from erectile dysfunction. The doctor said it was likely psychological, stress, maybe even trauma, but couldn't determine the exact cause. He tried therapy and several proposed treatments, but nothing worked. Eventually, he accepted the situation, convincing himself that this was simply how his life would be. Little did he know that his problem would eventually find a solution, just not in the way he expected, or with the person he would have chosen. The gala glittered with wealth, power, and carefully constructed illusions. Young-woo Park moved through it like a blade, sharp, precise, untouchable, until impact, a body collided with his. Liquid splashed across his chest. "I'm so sorry." She didn't look up at first. Her hands moved quickly, instinctively, pressing a napkin against his shirt, trying to fix what couldn't be undone. And then, their eyes met. Everything stopped. His body reacted before his mind could catch up. Heat, tension, a sudden, undeniable hardness that made his breath hitch. Mahalia Johnson froze. Him, of all people. Her fingers trembled against his chest before she pulled back as if burned. Young-woo's jaw tightened. Without a word, he stepped away. Too abruptly, too coldly, and turned. He walked fast. Too fast. Straight to the restroom. Inside, he gripped the edge of the sink, staring at his reflection. No, that's not possible. He checked. There was no doubt. His chest rose and fell sharply as disbelief settled into something dangerously close to. Oh, panic. Coincidence. It had to be. It wasn't. He tested it. Different women. Different encounters. Nothing. Cold. Unresponsive. Empty. Until he stood in her gallery. The scent hit him first. Paint, wood. Something soft and unmistakably hers. He hadn't planned to come. He needed to come. Mahalia saw him before he saw her. Her heart stuttered. He never came here. Never. She approached slowly, her steps steady despite the storm raging inside her. He turned, looked at her, said nothing. The silence stretched, heavy, suffocating. She held his gaze, refusing to look away, but he remained silent. A faint flush crept across her cheeks. To distract herself, she began to speak. Anything, just to break the tension and give herself something to do. "I thought you came here to talk to me." He continued to look at her without saying a word. She shifted slightly, stepping aside to give him space. His hand shot out, wrapped around her wrist, and the moment he touched her, it hit him. Immediate, violent, alive. His breath caught. There was no doubt anymore. He dropped her hand like it burned him and walked out. She watched him leave, perplexed. He went immediately to see his doctor and explained the situation. "This is good news." The doctor smiled, almost relieved. Young-woo didn't. "It's not." The smile faltered. "Why not?" Silence. Then, flatly, "Because I can't have a relationship with her." "Why?" A pause. "You know why," said Young-woo. "She is not your sister," replied the doctor. "I know," said Young-woo. "Then why?" "Because there are two people I hate more than anything, and she is one of them. There is no blood between us. It just so happens that her brother and I have the same father." "That's it. And that's already too much?" The words came sharp, final. The doctor frowned slightly. "But," a beat, "that man destroyed my family." Young-woo continued, his voice lowered. "I won't blur that line. He avoided her. Then he didn't. Started small. He went to look for her at the gallery. He told himself it didn't mean anything. This time he walked up to her. And for a second he almost turned around. "Hi," he said instead. The word felt wrong in his mouth. She looked at him, clearly surprised. Not just to see him there, but to see him speaking to her at all. There was a pause, long enough to feel it. "Hi," she answered, slower, cautious. He started a conversation. It was clumsy, uneven. He didn't know where to look, at her or away. Like both choices meant something he wasn't ready to admit. She noticed. Of course she did. The way he avoided her eyes, then forced himself to meet them again. He told himself he would leave after that this was enough. But he came back. Again. And the next time, the words slipped out before he could stop them. "Do you maybe want to meet somewhere else?" It hung there, heavier than it should have been. Because she was the one person he had really tried, to avoid. The one he had almost convinced himself he hated. And still, here he was. Silence. Her expression shifted, just slightly. Surprise, first. Then something more guarded. She searched his face, like she was trying to understand what had changed, or what he wanted from her now. "You mean, not here?" she asked quietly. There was hesitation in her voice. Not refusal, but not trust either. Because she remembered how he used to avoid her, how cold he could be. Then a cafe. Hidden, quiet, reckless. "You shouldn't be here," Young-woo said. "And yet you asked me to come." Her voice was soft, but steady. A glance held too long. He leaned closer. Too close. "You don't understand what this is." "Then explain it to me." His eyes dropped to her lips. Her breath caught. So did his. For a second, just one, they hovered there. They didn't move. The space between them felt impossibly thin, like it could disappear with the slightest shift. Their eyes locked, and this time neither of them looked away. It was too much, too direct, too honest. Something flickered there. Not just anger. Not just resentment. Something that had been buried under all of it, refusing to stay hidden any longer. Her breath caught, barely noticeable, but he saw it. And she saw the way his jaw tightened, like he was holding himself back from something he didn't trust. Felt inevitable, like they were about to cross a line neither of them could uncross. They both felt it, and that was exactly why neither of them moved. His gaze dropped first. It was small, barely noticeable, but it was enough. He pulled back sharply, like the air between them had suddenly become too heavy to breathe. "This is a bad idea," he muttered, more to himself than to her. Her expression hardened instantly. Of course he would be the one to stop it. Forget this ever happened. Mahalia went back to her apartment. The door clicked shut behind her, the sound echoing a little too loudly in the quiet. She didn't bother turning on all the lights. Just the kitchen. Just enough. She sat at the island, a mug of hot chocolate wrapped between her hands, letting the warmth sink into her fingers. For a while she didn't move, just stared at nothing. "Forget," he had said. Her lips pressed into a faint, humorless line. As if she could. As if it were that simple, like putting something down and choosing not to pick it back up again. She knew why she should forget. Knew all the reasons. Had repeated them to herself enough times to almost believe them. It would be easier, cleaner, safer. And still, her grip tightened slightly around the mug. It didn't change anything. Because the moment she closed her eyes, he was there. Not the way he looked now. Not the tension, not the distance. Something older, softer. A memory, uninvited, slipped through before she could stop it. And this time, she didn't push it away. She was 8, quiet, gentle, trying to be invisible. Yeri was 11, old enough to understand, old enough to hurt. Liam intervenes. But Liam carried his own weight, the truth of his existence. The son born from betrayal. Their mother had Liam with Jungwoo's father, while he was still engaged to Jungwoo's mother. None of them knew the truth until the day she came back. She was dying. She had no one left. So she entrusted her children to Park Di-woo, Liam's father. Liam was his responsibility. Mahalia was a favor she asked of him. Young-woo stayed as long as his mother did. He held on for as long as she could. Almost 2 years. That was all they had. Then his parents divorced, and he left with her. But Jungwoo's sister, Yeri, stayed. And Mahalia paid the price. Every day, every word, every look. And still, Mahalia remembered something else. A gala, her first. A girl mocking her quietly, until Jung-woo stepped in. Cold, ruthless, precise. He shut it down. Didn't look at Mahalia once after. But that moment stayed. And something fragile, foolish began. The ringing of her phone brings her back to the present. It's her brother. 3 days later. Jung-woo didn't forget. Neither did she. Some things don't fade just because you tell them to. They met at a private, traditional restaurant. Quiet, intimate. The kind of place where voices stay low and everything feels a little too close. Mahalia arrived first. She sat across the table, hands folded in front of her, pretending to study the details around her. The soft lighting, the neatly arranged dishes, anything but the door. But every time it opened, her gaze flickered up anyway. Waiting. When he finally walked in, she felt it before she saw him. That shift in the air. That tension she couldn't ignore, no matter how much she tried. Her eyes lifted and found him immediately. For a second, neither of them moved. Then he walked toward her. Steady. Controlled. Like he hadn't spent the last 3 days thinking about this moment. Like she hadn't either. He stopped across from her. "Hi," he said. Simple. Careful. Too careful. Mahalia held his gaze for a beat longer than necessary before answering. "Hi." And just like that, they were back in it. The silence settled between them as he sat down. Not empty, never empty. Just full of everything they weren't saying. A server arrived almost immediately, placing water on the table with practiced ease, unaware of the tension sitting inches away from it. Jung-woo gave a polite nod. Mahalia didn't move. When they were alone again, the room felt even smaller. "So," she said at last, voice light in a way that didn't reach her eyes. "You chose a place where we can't easily leave." His gaze lifted. "You could leave any time you want." A pause. "That's not what I meant," she replied. Of course he understood that. He looked down at the menu he wasn't reading. "I didn't pick it." A faint, humorless breath escaped her. "Right? Someone else just knew exactly why what we needed." His jaw tightened slightly at that, but he didn't argue. Another silence. It should have been easier here, safer at least. A table between them. Rules. Distance. But it wasn't, because she could still feel him. "I thought about not coming," she admitted suddenly, almost like it slipped out on its own. His fingers paused on the edge of the menu. "Me too," he said. That landed heavier than either of them expected. Mahalia finally looked at him properly. "But you did anyway." "So did you." A beat. Neither of them denied it. The server returned, taking their orders. Polite smiles. Routine questions. A world that kept moving as if nothing beneath the surface was breaking apart. When he left again, Jung-woo leaned back slightly in his chair, exhaling slowly. "You shouldn't have answered me that day," he said. Her eyes narrowed. "At the gallery?" "Yes. And yet here we are," she replied softly. That made something flicker in his expression. Frustration, maybe, or regret. "Why did you?" he asked. Mahalia held his gaze. "'Cause I wanted to see if you meant it. Because I hate that I care. Because I didn't trust myself not to answer." Instead she said, "Because you asked." A simple answer. Too simple. He didn't look away. "That's not all," he said quietly. It wasn't a question. Her fingers tightened slightly around her glass. And for a moment she considered lying. But then his eyes shifted, just barely, and something in her chest gave way. "No," she admitted. The word hung there. Honest. Dangerous. The air between them changed immediately. Not softer, just sharper. More real. Jung-woo leaned forward slightly, elbows near the table edge, like he was closing a distance neither of them had agreed to acknowledge. "Then what is it?" he asked. Mahalia let out a quiet breath. And for the first time since she sat down, she didn't look away. "That's your problem," she said. "You always ask questions like you're ready for the answer." A flicker in his eyes. "And you?" he countered softly. "Are you?" The question landed exactly where it hurt. For a second, Neither of them spoke. Then Mahalia looked down at her glass, voice quieter now. No. Confession barely audible. But it was enough. Youngwoo didn't move, but something in his expression shifted, like he'd been holding himself together by force and just felt the strain of it crack. His hand found her jaw, tilted her face up. A hesitation. A war. Then, he kissed her. Hard at first. Controlled. Then not controlled at all. Mahalia melted into it before she could think. Her fingers curled into his shirt. His grip tightened at her waist. The world disappeared, until it came crashing back. Neither of them went back to who they were before the kiss. Something had already shifted irreversibly. A kind of relationship began after that. Unspoken rules forming in the spaces between them. This stays between us, he said. His voice was low. Absolute. Mahalia blinked slowly. What? No one knows. No one finds. Especially Liam. Especially Yeri. The names landed like weight on the couch where they were sitting. She stared at him, disbelief sharpening her expression. That's not a relationship. His gaze didn't waver. It's the only one we're allowed. Silence. Stretched, tight and fragile. Mahalia lowered her eyes for a second, breathing out slowly like she was trying to steady something inside her. And if it's not enough? She asked quietly. That finally changed something in him. His jaw tightened. His eyes darkened. Not with anger exactly, but with something heavier. Something restrained too long. It has to be, he said. No hesitation. No softness. Just necessity. Mahalia looked back at him then. Really looked. At the distance he was already building even while sitting this close. And still, neither of them moved away. They met again at the cafe. Mahalia arrived first, like the last time, choosing a table slightly tucked away from the rest. Close enough to see the door clearly. Far enough to pretend it meant nothing. A mistake. A familiar face. A friend of Yeri's. A glance. Recognition. Shock. A message sent. Yeri informed. Their mother alerted. And then, at the gallery, the door slammed open. Yeri stood there, fury barely contained. What were you doing at the cafe? Mahalia's breath caught, like the air had been stolen from the room. For a second, she couldn't even form words. Just stared at Yeri, the accusation hanging between them like something sharp and unfair. Her voice broke, so she tried again, quieter. I wasn't doing anything wrong. Yeri's eyes didn't soften. If anything, they hardened further. Why are you near my brother? The word brother felt like a weapon. Mahalia swallowed hard, forcing her hands to unclench at her sides. I didn't go there for your brother. I didn't even know he'd be there. I was just passing by. A beat of silence. The hallway felt too small for both of them. I hope you weren't thinking of following in your mother's footsteps? Mahalia's throat tightened. Her voice dropped, barely steady now. Don't talk about my mother like that. That last sentence landed differently, heavier. Not loud, not dramatic. Just real. Her eyes flickered away for a second, as if holding herself together cost too much effort. When she looked back, there was something tired behind her anger. I'm not her, she said. And I'm not whatever story you've decided I am. The office felt too polished for the tension that suddenly filled it. Glass walls, city light, silence that should have been calm. Youngwoo finally leaned back in his chair. But it wasn't relaxation. It was restraint. His mother stood near the desk like she owned the air itself. Perfect posture. Perfect expression. Only her eyes betrayed the sharp edge underneath. You think you can just sit in a cafe with her? She repeated, slower this time, as if he hadn't understood the first insult. Youngwoo didn't answer. That silence irritated her more than any argument would have. Don't tell me, she went on, voice tightening. You want to play family with her? And that boy? A flicker crossed Jungwoo's face then. Small, almost invisible. Not surprise. Not denial either. Something more complicated. What if I do? He said. The room shifted. Even the air seemed to pause. His mother let out a short, disbelieving breath. like she'd been slapped with something absurd. You dare bring them into your life again? Jungwoo's gaze didn't move from her. Calm. Too calm. I never said I would, he replied evenly. It wasn't entirely a lie. That earned him a sharper look. At least he had never considered a relationship with Liam. His mother's jaw tightened. Good, she said immediately. I hope you don't. Then her voice lowered, colder now, controlled again. I don't know why you insist on seeing her, but stop it. It's giving me a headache. And with that, she left. Jungwoo exhaled slowly through his nose and turning slightly toward the window. Outside, the city kept moving like none of this mattered. Inside, his voice came quieter. You don't get to decide that. Elsewhere, Liam asked his sister out, saying it had been a long time since they'd had a proper talk. At first, she was afraid Yeri might have told him something, but apparently, she hadn't. Liam, I need to tell you something. I'm listening, Liam said. Have you thought about talking to Jungwoo? Why should I do that? He's your brother. I don't think he sees it that way. Maybe things have changed. How could you know that? Liam asked. I just thought that Jungwoo. I don't want to hear his name. He cut her off. Cold. Immediate. Final. He doesn't exist to me. Mahalia closed her eyes. Because now, he existed too much. When Mahalia met Jungwoo at his penthouse, they talk about his mother visit and Yeri visit. Everything was unraveling. Too fast. Too loud. Too exposed. Jungwoo looked at Mahalia. Really looked at her. Desire. Hatred. History. All tangled beyond repair. This is why it had to stay secret. She swallowed. And now. A long silence. Then quietly. Now. It might destroy everything. But I don't intend to stop seeing you. And you? Me neither. Mahalia said. Everything should have ended that night. Didn't. They had a drink, his hand lightly caressing her arm. The wine, rich and fruity, seems to intensify every sensation. He sets his glass down and gently takes hers, placing it on the coffee table. Then he pulls her softly toward him, his arms wrapping around her waist. Their lips meet in a slow, deep kiss. Her mouth is soft, her lips parting beneath his, inviting a more intense exploration. He can feel her warm breath against his skin, her heartbeat in sync with his own. It is a moment of pure connection, free from the distractions of the outside world. After a few moments, he pulls back slightly, his hands still resting on her hips. I want you, he murmurs, his voice rough with desire. Let's go to my bedroom. She nods, her eyes shining with trust and desire. He takes her in his arms, guiding her through the living room toward the bedroom. In the bedroom, he holds her close, his hands exploring the curve of her back, feeling the warmth of her skin through the thin fabric of her dress. She shivers at his touch, her arms wrapping around his neck. He lets his lips trail along her neck, his hands sliding lower to caress her. She lets out a soft moan, her body pressing against his. He can feel the tension building, their mutual need growing more urgent. He guides her toward the bed, his fingers finding the zipper of her dress. She turns slightly, allowing him to slide it off her shoulders, revealing her bare skin. He gently lays her on her back, his hands exploring every inch of her body, memorizing each curve and hollow. She gasps as his fingers brush against the silk of her underwear, finding her warmth. He touches her gently, feeling her hips rise to meet him. She is so responsive, so open to every sensation. He kneels between her legs, his hands slipping beneath her to unclasp her bra. Her body reacts instantly to his touch. He leans down, his mouth moving against her skin, his attention focused and deliberate. She arches, her hands tangling in his hair. He continues to caress her, feeling her readiness, her warmth. He positions himself between her legs, drawn by the heat of her body. You're so beautiful, he whispers, before joining with her. She cries out, her nails pressing into his back. He begins to move, his hips finding a natural rhythm. Each motion is an exploration, a rediscovery of what it means to be connected to someone in the most intimate way. He feels her body tense, her muscles tightening around him. He shifts slightly, and she cries out again, overwhelmed by the intensity of the sensation. He keeps moving, his own feelings building, until he reaches his peak, collapsing against her as their breaths mingle. They fall asleep in each other's arms, wrapped in a quiet warmth that lingers long after the night fades. The next morning, he wakes first, the soft light of dawn filtering through the curtains. For a moment, he just watches her, still and peaceful beside him. When she stirs, he smiles gently, brushing a strand of hair from her face. They get up slowly, the silence between them comfortable rather than awkward. In the kitchen, they share a simple breakfast. Coffee, a few quiet words, and soft glances that say more than conversation ever could. There's an ease to it, as if time has slowed just for them. Eventually, she gets ready to leave. At the door, they hesitate for a second, caught between staying and going. Then she smiles and he walks her out, watching as she heads home, the memory of the night and the morning still lingering between them. Jung-woo had a lot of work. Meetings. The distance started to become unbearable from the moment he kissed her, when he touched her, tasted her. Because now he knew, and knowing ruined him. Mahalia stood across her gallery days later, speaking to a client. She smiled politely, her voice soft, composed. But her eyes, they kept drifting, toward the entrance, as if expecting him, as if waiting. He arrived without warning. And he wasn't alone. A woman stood beside him, elegant, poised, the kind that fit perfectly into his world. Mahalia felt it instantly, that sharp, quiet fracture inside her chest. She kept smiling, kept speaking, but her words blurred. Because Jung-woo wasn't looking at the paintings. He wasn't listening to the client. He was looking at her, only her. And when the woman beside him lightly touched his arm, Mahalia looked away first. Later, "You brought her here?" Her voice was calm, too calm. Jung-woo stepped closer. "I had a meeting. In my gallery?" His jaw tightened. "You think I planned this?" "No," she said softly, her eyes finally meeting his, and there was something fragile breaking inside them. "I think you don't realize what you do to me when you act like I'm nothing, and then look at me like I'm everything." That hit harder than it should have. Harder than he expected. They stopped pretending after that. Not in private. Never in public. It became a pattern. Late nights. Hidden places. Moments stolen between obligations and expectations. A hallway. Parked car. The quiet corner of her gallery after closing. Each time more dangerous. Each time harder to walk away. "You're shaking," he murmured once, his forehead resting against hers. "I shouldn't be here. And yet you are." Her fingers curled into his jacket. "Because you keep looking at me like I matter. And then you disappear like I don't." His breath faltered. Because that was exactly what he was doing. Another time, she laughed softly, breathless after pulling away from him. "This is insane." Yes. And you're not even denying it." "I don't want to." The honesty startled both of them. It got worse. Because people started noticing patterns. Not the truth, but enough to be dangerous. At another event, a man approached Mahalia, charming, interested, persistent. Jung-woo saw, from across the room, and something in him snapped. He crossed the distance too quickly, too directly. Mahalia barely had time to react before Jung-woo's hand was on her waist. Possessive, unmistakable. The man stepped back, confused. Jung-woo didn't even look at him. "Leave." Cold. Final. The man left. Silence followed. Heavy. Loaded. Mahalia turned to him slowly. "You don't get to do that." His grip didn't loosen. "I just did. I'm not yours." His eyes darkened. "Say that again." Her breath hitched, but she held his gaze. "I'm not yours." Something dangerous flickered across his face. Not anger. Something deeper. More unstable. And something happened the night everything finally slowed down. No interruptions. No witnesses. No running. Mahalia stood in her apartment, facing him. No distance left. No excuses. Only truth. "I can't do this anymore," she said quietly. Young-woo went still. Her voice trembled, but she didn't stop. "I can't keep pretending that this doesn't mean something, that you don't mean something, when every time you touch me it feels like my entire world shifts in a way that I don't understand and can't control. And every time you walk away it feels like I'm being abandoned all over again for reasons I didn't choose and don't deserve." He didn't move, didn't breathe. "I grew up being told, shown, that I didn't belong, that I was a problem, that my existence ruined things before I even understood what those things were. And I learned to accept it, to stay quiet, to take up less space, to not ask for more." Her eyes filled, but her voice didn't break. "Until you." A pause. Heavy. Fragile. "You looked at me once, years ago, like I was worth defending, and I held on to that for so long that I didn't even realize I had built something inside me around you. Something I knew I shouldn't feel, something I tried to bury, but it didn't go away." Her breath shook now. "And now you're here, touching me like I matter, wanting me in ways that make no sense given everything between us. And I don't know how to survive that if you're just going to walk away again." Silence. Raw. Exposed. Young-woo stepped closer. Slowly. Carefully. Like approaching something fragile. "I hate what your brother represents." His voice was low. Steady. "I hate what my father did. What it did to my mother. To my family." A breath. "But I don't hate you." Closer. "I tried." Another step. "I avoided you. Ignored you. Reduced you to something easier to reject." Now he was right in front of her. "And then that night, my body reacted to you in a way it hasn't reacted to anyone in years. And I told myself it was nothing, that it meant nothing, that you meant nothing." His hand lifted, hesitated, then gently touched her cheek. "And I was wrong." His voice lowered further. More vulnerable than she had ever heard it. "I don't just want you." A pause. "I look for you." Her breath caught. "In rooms full of people, in conversations I don't care about, in places I have no reason to be, I find myself searching for you without realizing it until it's already too late. And when you're there everything sharpens, and when you're not there everything feels empty in a way I can't justify." His thumb brushed lightly against her skin. "And I don't know how to fix that." A long silence. Then, almost reluctantly, "I don't know how to have you without destroying everything." She stepped closer, closed the last space between them. "Then stop trying to control it," she whispered. He kissed her. Not like before. Not rushed. Not desperate. But deep. Certain. Like a decision. And for a moment, everything felt possible. Their secret didn't stay theirs for long. Because truth, once spoken, changes everything. And secrets don't survive truth. The next morning, they were seen. Not almost. Not maybe. Seen. Together kissing. And this time, there was no denying it. The message spread faster than either of them could react. Yuri. Her mother. Liam. And when the door opened again, it wasn't confusion anymore. It was war. And this time, there would be no hiding. Part 2 coming soon. If the story moved you, please give it a like and subscribe so you never miss what comes next.